with a political objective behind it. And now there's this big op-ed in the New York Post, which just calls attention to the outright destruction that is done, that has been done to New York City. It is just incredible what has happened here and what's ongoing. And now we've got the ability to make side-by-side comparisons of things. Open up, let freedom ring, let people be responsible for themselves, and you see what happens. It all works out. The idea that the American people are a bunch of children, cannot be protected from themselves, cannot be allowed to make their own minds up, has been a classic element of American liberalism and the Democrat Party for who knows how long, and they're eager to shovel more and more people into that category. Anyway, folks, it's great to have you. Great to be back. The telephone number, if you want to join us, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. There are more updates on the coup attempt, the effort to bring down the Trump administration, the effort to bring down the Trump transition, the effort to bring down the Trump campaign. There's more and more evidence that's getting piled onto previously existing evidence that once again will allow me to say, nya, 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 nya. See, I told you so. It was right. And something else happened while I was away. The Attorney General, William Barr, did you hear what he said? I don't see us prosecuting Obama. I don't see us prosecuting Biden. Remember the grief I took for warning you people that this was going to be the case? I mean, Snerdley loaded up a full day of phone calls of people dumping all over me as though it was my fault that Obama wasn't going to be prosecuted. All I was telling you was we don't prosecute ex-presidents. We don't, because if we did, remember the uproar when the Southern District of New York and then the New York AG office started making plans to indict Trump when he leaves office? And remember how upset that made everybody, because that would take make the leap of criminalizing and establishing the precedent of criminalizing policy differences in presidents and elections and so forth. It's a step that we've never taken. And I didn't see it happening now. And everybody that Snerdley sent my way was just dumping all over me. And that was before Barr came out and made his announcement. Now we've got Ken Starr saying, well, yeah, I think there's going to be indictments, but I don't know how high up they're going to go. So these are things, again, that I know as a result of intelligence guided by experience. The point is there's updated news on all of that. And how it just can't be that James Comey went rogue. And it can't be that Brennan went rogue. And it can't be that Clapper went rogue, meaning that they all decided to act individually on their anti-Trump bias. There had to be instructions. There had to be a plan. There had to be an operation. And there had to be somebody at the top of that operation. And the more that gets declassified here, the more obvious that connection goes all the way to the top of the Obama administration, which would be Obama. Also, people are asking for a health update. It's been a long time since I provided you with a health update. And I do these on the basis of instinctive feel. And I don't have a schedule and a plan. Okay, on this day, I'm going to update the audience on this stage and this. It's all instinctive. It's all a feel for it. And since I'm back on the day that I told you I'd be back, nothing of any emergency status happened, then I don't know. If I feel like updating, I will. But as I've told you before, I've really tried to avoid becoming the nation's most listened to cancer patient. I want to be the nation's most listened to radio guy, radio talk show host. The nation's most listened to media raconteur and whatever. But if the if the feeling hits me, then I will provide you one. There is updated news, and if it strikes me at a certain point in time, I will pass that on. I want to start, however, with a graduate, or the closest that we've ever had to a graduate of the EIB Limbaugh Institute, and that would be Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. As you know, there are no graduates from the Limbaugh Institute because the learning never stops. We don't issue degrees here because there never is a time where we have proclaimed that our students have learned it all. Or that because our curriculum is constantly expanding. There is no set curriculum here. But Governor DeSantis has asked in the past for an honorary degree. And Governor DeSantis has said that if said honorary degree were ever bestowed, that he would hang it, frame it, hang it proudly on the wall in his gubernatorial office. And if anybody has come close to earning an honorary degree from the Limbaugh Institute, it is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. He has clearly had enough of the drive-by media. After months of being slammed by fake news and by the gloom and doom casualty forecasts over his handling of the coronavirus, the governor called them out. With Vice President Mike Pence by his side, Governor DeSantis reminded reporters to their faces that a lot of the people in their profession had gleefully predicted for weeks that Florida was going to be just like New York. They couldn't let New York be a standalone because it's a New York governor, somebody they're still trying to maneuver to be Pluggs' replacement, who's been an abject failure, who continues to be an abject failure, who has presided over the unnecessary, untold deaths of how many seasoned citizens by farming them out to nursing homes to get rid of them. He never did face the massive hospital shortage that the president set him up for, never needed any of the additional hospital spaces, hospital beds. And so the drive-by media, just as Trump must look bad every day as many ways as possible, Andrew Cuomo must look like perfection. He must look like brilliance. He must be portrayed as the legitimate inheritor of the brilliance of his father, Mario the Pious Cuomo. And he just can't pull it off. New York is an absolute disaster area because of the way it has been dealt with. It has been set up to be an ongoing disaster area because Governor Cuomo refuses to even contemplate the prospect of opening up the city. And in the service of what? In the service of defeating Donald Trump. In service of winning back the White House. This, the party that supposedly cares about the little guy. It cares about the downtrodden, the blue-collar union worker. So much is being exposed about the Democrat Party, but who they really are and what their interests actually are. Governor DeSantis was said to be presiding over a circumstance in Florida that was going to be so much worse than New York. You know why? Because there's so many seasoned citizens here. And because of the experience of Governor Cuomo, why, seasoned citizens are in the #1 death trap for COVID-19. And DeSantis is a Republican. He doesn't know what he's doing. They got this massive retirement thing down there they call the villages. And guess what? Not a single reported case, not a single reported death. And as DeSantis points out, not only is his own population diverse with a significant-sized elderly population, a bunch of the people fleeing New York and the northeastern states where these lockdowns are in place are coming to Florida, and even those people are staying healthy. The predictions that Florida would be just like New York never materialized. DeSantis ran through the coronavirus data for Florida. He compared it with states like New York, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana. He also studied Hong Kong, and he studied South Korea. And he found out he studied Italy. He was hell-bent on not repeating any of the policies or the mistakes that had led to massive numbers of cases and deaths in either other states or other countries. And as I say, despite the massive numbers of people escaping to Florida, escaping the infected Northeast, Florida did better than all the others. New York has over 350,000 coronavirus cases compared to under 50,000 cases in Florida, and 29,000 of those in Florida are in the southeastern counties of the state. There have been about 2,000 deaths in Florida, but that's less than 1/10 the 23,000 deaths in New York. And yet, the drive-by media puts Andrew Cuomo up on this pedestal and touts him as great and compassionate and concerned and qualified to replace plugs as a Democrat presidential nominee, and they still try to cast DeSantis as a right-wing kook conspiracy theorist who can't think or open his mouth without talking to Donald Trump first. And he's finally had it. DeSantis went on to say, despite Florida's success, the drive-bys are never going to cover it because it doesn't fit their narrative, and that is true. It's also true for Georgia. Even the mayor of Atlanta has now been forced to say, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yet, he says. Governor Kemp opens up Florida, the same kind of cacophonous, negative, critical excrement show descends on him from our same old buddies in the drive-by media. And yet, fewer cases. Mayor of Atlanta pleasantly surprised, cases are going down. So it remains true. States, look at Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. There is a revolt brewing in Illinois primarily because of what Pritzker, the governor there, is trying to do with churches. The first thing these Democrat governors did you notice? Shut the churches and try to take away people's guns. First thing the blue state governors did. And the churches are revolting against it. You know where else there's a success story? Jerry Falwell Jr. at Liberty University. Liberty University opened the campus this spring, weeks ago. No massive number of cases, no massive deaths. Jerry Falwell Jr. happy to tell people how they did it. Notre Dame is going to open classes August the 10th. No word on a football season. You can't have a football season in college football. The schools don't open because the athletes are all students. The athletes all go to class. So you can't, until they admit that players don't go to class, until they start paying them, you can't have a college football, right, Brian? You can't have a college football season until you open the universities. And Notre Dame has announced they're going to open the universities. Blue state governors wanted to take away church, wanted to take away guns. It remains that what is good for America is, at this point in time, bad for Democrats. Here is Governor DeSantis. This was yesterday in Florida, after he and Pence delivered masks and gloves to a nursing home in Orlando, I think.
Our data is available. Our data is transparent. In fact, Dr. Birx has talked multiple times about how Florida has the absolute best data. So any insinuation otherwise is just typical partisan narrative trying to be spun. And part of the reason is that because you got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened. Not only do we have a lower death rate, well, we have way lower deaths generally, we have a lower death rate than the Acela Corridor, D.C., everyone up there. We have a lower death rate than the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. But even in our region, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida has the lower death rate, and I was the #1 landing spot from tens of thousands of people leaving the #1 hot zone in the world to come to my state. So we've succeeded, and I think that people just don't want to recognize it because it challenges their narrative, it challenges their assumption, so they got to try to find a boogeyman. Maybe it's that there are black helicopters circling the Department of Health. If you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you.
That is Governor DeSantis really unloading on the media yesterday. The media's been doing two things: lying in wait, hoping Florida falls apart because he's a Republican. And then when Florida becomes a success story, they do not say a word. They do not report it, and yet keep touting the great successes of this waste of a governor in New Jersey, and then Cuomo in New York, and then what's going on in Michigan. It's just absurd. Even Rich Lowry at National Review has a piece. Where does Ron DeSantis go to get his apology? A fat chance. Anyway, I got to take a break, folks, as the first segment has zipped by. We'll be back and continue right after this.
He's America's adult. Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network.
The Drudge page, and there's a graphic accompanying a story, and it's all about doomsday forecasts for the next few months in America. The doomsday forecasts are the result of a model from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School. Now, this model, which is a relatively new model on the SAM, it's been out there, but we haven't. It has not been in the top two models that are constantly cited, the one from the UK and the one from the state of Washington. But the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, which is, by the way, Trump's alma mater, very big point here. The Wharton School model is predicting, ready for this? COVID-19 cases are going to reach 5.4 million, and the death toll could be 290,000 by July 24th. That is if there is reopening, and if there is no social distancing. But don't worry, because the Wharton model only predicts 4.3 million cases and 230,000 deaths, not 290,000, by July 24th if states reopen but continue social distancing. Now, what do you think the real purpose of this is? Since everything is politicized, since everything has been corrupted that the left touches, what do you think this is? This is the new version of 2.2 million people could die if you don't shut down. 2.2 million people could die if you don't mitigate. This is all part of the relentless effort to prevent or to slow down the reopening of the U.S. economy. That's all this is. Do not doubt me. It's an attempt to scare everybody into resisting opening up. Even if your state opens up, you're supposed to stay scared and not participate. That's the objective here.
Introducing Barney Frank and the long-anticipated premiere of his new CD, Gay Wedding A Go-Go.
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your ear.
If you're going to San Francisco with that special somebody, don't forget to take along the wedding album everybody says is just fabulous.
No one will ever want us to get married, so we're going to the courtroom instead.
And what same-sex wedding would be complete without this all-time favorite?
If monogamy is the answer, then who's the wedding for? I just saw your lover as he headed out the door. Where is Bob? Where is Bob?
With Gay Wedding A Go-Go, choosing the music will be the easiest decision you two will ever make.
I thought I was going to be the bride.
Now I'm going to be the bride.
Well, I just had my hair done. But I bought this dress, and you're stepping on it. Get off!
Barney Frank's Gay Wedding A Go-Go. Available everywhere this record is sold. Now, another bright idea from Barack Obama. Paygo. With Paygo, you'll be an important part of something way bigger than yourself. The federal government.
In 5 short months and $11 trillion later, it has come to my attention that we need to be fiscally responsible. We need to actually pay for our new initiatives as we go forward.
Paygo is not just another tax and spend plan by the Democrats in Congress. It's something different. It's spend, then tax.
Now, some people have questioned our ability to be responsible with your money. They say that we have no idea what we are doing just because our first stimulus plan isn't working, or because we bailed out Chrysler just to give it away to the unions. Maybe it's because we can't give away treasury bonds and mortgage interest rates are shooting through the roof. It could be because we have record unemployment that keeps going up, or that North Korea makes fun of me.
Ask your representative about Paygo before it's too late. And now, Andy Griffith for Obamacare.
1965. A lot of good things came out that year, like Medicare. And now we got us Obamacare. And this year, just like always, you're gonna have your guaranteed benefits right up until the time you get sick. So all you old angry white folks out there joining the tea parties and protesting and all, just calm down and be a good cracker. Good cracker. Tell them the new rules, Barney. Well, you see, it's like this. Here in Washington, everybody has to play by the rules. And we've developed a rule book just for you there at home. 62,528 new rules to help you through the process of healthcare in an orderly, organized fashion. Rule number 1. There are no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches allowed in any hospital day or night, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Rule number 2. If any named insured of a qualified plan gets sick, he or she must fill out request form 24/7.
For more information on Obamacare and how it affects those 65 and older, just get sick and you'll find out.
Vibrations, rhetoric, and resonance from coast to coast. All right. A couple of sound bites. This is an ABC News report today. Good morning, America. And it's the end of a report from correspondent Steve Osunsami, reporting about the number of coronavirus cases in places that are reopening.
Here in Georgia, the numbers appear to be moving in the right direction. In fact, in the 21 states that have eased restrictions since May 4th or earlier, ABC News has found no major increase in hospitalizations, deaths, or percentage of people testing positive. George.
Boy, that is encouraging news, Steve. Okay, thanks very much.
Boy, it's Stephanopoulos there. Boy, Steve, it's really encouraging news. What about you people that keep getting it wrong? Where are the apologies? Where are the assurances to the American? You got this whole Trump-Russia collusion thing wrong. Not a single apology. Nobody's returned a Pulitzer Prize you got for the fake, phony reporting. You still accept as gospel whatever the lying sources then are telling you now. You've scared the American people staying at home. You've scared them to death of their own shadows. Then you run the story saying, hey, it's not nearly as bad. Wow, boy, that's encouraging. That's all you've got to say about it. How about we were wrong? How about we were wrong on purpose? I don't expect them to actually admit that. But I'm just telling you, all of these folks, you got to pay attention. All of these horror stories about the predictions now, since some states are opening up here, got new models. The Wharton School, oh my God, 290,000 new deaths. Oh my God, could only be 230,000. Oh my, it's designed to get you not to open up, not to participate in the opening up. I think the effort's going to fail. I think it's already falling apart. I think the blue states are falling apart. I think the blue states and these blue state governors under intense pressure like you and I can't believe because it isn't being reported. But who's giving the standing orders to the blue state governors to stay locked down? Are they doing it on their own? Or is it coming from higher up? Is it coming from whoever's running the DNC? Is it coming from Pelosi? Is it coming from Schumer? Or do they just do it instinctively because this is what they do? I mean, look at the Obama economy for 8 years. You know, Obama's out there talking about how incompetent Trump is. For crying out loud, Obama rewrote the book on presidential incompetence. And all you need to do is look at his economy for the evidence. And what Trump was able to do to correct it in 3 years. And now look where we are. Trending right back down to the Obama economy and lower. And who is it that's happy about that and wants to keep us there? Your Democrat Party. They don't deserve your vote. They do not deserve your vote. I don't care if you're a lifelong Democrat. Voting for a Democrat is voting for your economic death. Voting for a Democrat is voting for the transformation of America, which I doubt a lot of you Democrats are really all in with. Here's the mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Last night's CNN Situation Room with Wolf Blitzed. He said, on Sunday, you said it was too soon to tell if your concern over Governor Kemp's decision was warranted to open the state. How do you feel about Georgia's reopening today?
We are about 10 days in. Things are not as bad as I thought that they would be yet, and I am very hopeful that they continue that way. But as we know, with COVID-19, there's often a lag in infections and when people begin to actually show symptoms and get sick. And so right now, it appears that we're doing better as a state. And I will keep watching and waiting.
For what? What are you going to wait for? To get worse? Is that the objective? So that Governor Kemp is wrong? What about your concern for the people? What about your concern that your city not become a ghost town? What about your concern for the people who live in your city? Oh, so yeah, it's good news, but you haven't seen any bad news yet from the reopening of the state of Georgia. Contrast this with the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio. This is Monday. His daily coronavirus briefing said this about prohibited activity at New York City beaches for Memorial Day weekend and beyond.
No swimming, no sports, no gatherings. NYPD will be out, Parks Department will be out. Don't go in the water. It's a dangerous situation to ever go in the water when there's not lifeguards present. If anyone tries to get in the water, they'll be taken right out of the water.
There you go. So there's your contrast. New York can't do this, don't do that. If you do that, we're going to come get you. If you do that, if you go there, we're going to come get you. The authorities, the police force are going to come get you. If you do that, if you don't do that. If you don't listen to us, we're going to come get you, and who knows what. You might join Lori Loughlin in jail. You heard about that? Lori Loughlin and her husband have accepted a plea deal of 2 months in jail, $150,000 fine for the fraud in getting their daughters at the USC. It's about the same deal that what's her face, Felicity Huffman got, except Felicity Huffman didn't fight it. These two did. And as they fought it, they kept adding on charges. You don't fight us. We are the same bunch of people that went after Donald Trump. You don't fight us. We're going to keep adding charges. You ever heard of Michael Flynn? You do not take us on. So they finally reached the settlement. Here's Phil Murphy. Here's the governor of New Jersey. This morning on CNBC Squawk Box, Joe Kernan says, bring us up to speed. What stage we're in right now and whether New Jersey is within all the guidelines we can start opening up.
We've begun to take what I would call baby steps. Admittedly, beaches is a big step in that list, but we've had a bias toward opening things up first that are outdoors and loosening that. We're as Moneyball as we can be, and we say all the time that data determines dates, and then more broadly, public health creates economic health. Trust me, I want to get folks back to work as fast as possible, but if we screw up the public health piece, none of that will happen. And that's really the side that we need to err on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the question is, how are these other states doing it then? You think they're not concerned with the public health aspect? Is it that the state of New Jersey is much more dense than the state of Florida? Is it, I mean, what is it? We say all the time, data determines dates. More broadly, public health creates economic health. Trust me, I want to get folks back to work as fast as possible. But if we screw up the public health piece, none of that will happen, and that's really the side we need to err on. Meaning, we can't open up if it's going to increase the number of cases. Well, I'm sorry, then you're never opening up, Governor. That's what you're saying. You know, something else DeSantis said, he studied the Spanish flu pandemic in 1917 and 1918, which was worldwide deadly. And one of the things DeSantis, the mayor of Florida, governor of Florida, one of the things he said he learned is there wasn't even a focus. Now, because World War I was raging, there wasn't even a focus on shutting anything down or it was a pandemic. It came along. It did what it did. The country did what it could to protect people and to help those who came down with the flu get over it, get better, but still it was massively deadly. But there wasn't anything of the sort like what we're doing now. In fact, Woodrow Wilson was president of the United States during the Spanish flu, which had two big waves, 1917, 1918. And there wasn't even an Oval Office address about it. No, it's just Oval Office. There wasn't even a White House, a presidential address about it. It was just something that happened. Oh, there's a pandemic out there. Okay, we deal with it. It didn't stop the presses on anything. It was just another event like an airplane crashed today or a car didn't crash today or whatever. It was not. It's like, do you remember the Donner Party? Had to turn to cannibalism to survive their trip over the Sierra Nevada mountains as they're going into California. The Donner Party had to resort to cannibalism. If you read the diaries written by the members of the Donner Party, the survival, you know, the only reference you'll find to the weather, which is what forced them to cannibalism, the only reference you'll find is it was a particularly cold winter. There wasn't any complaining about it. There wasn't any whining and moaning or, what? Oh, my God, what are we going to do about the children? They just endured it. And, yeah, they had to resort to cannibalism, and that's how we know about the Donner Party. And no, nobody's advocating. I'm just talking about the fact that what we're going through here is not unprecedented. There have been pandemics. This isn't even as deadly as AIDS. And we didn't shut anything down for AIDS. Not a single thing. And there were people who made allusions to maybe we might want to quarantine. No, you don't. You're not quarantining anybody. So there were all kinds of mitigation efforts that were proposed during AIDS. That's just back in the 1980s. They were all summarily rejected by the group of people suffering from HIV. Do you know there was no antibiotic of any kind in 1917? The solution for Spanish flu, you know what the treatment for Spanish flu was? 1917, exactly. Get out in the sunshine and fresh air. Vitamin D, although they didn't know what vitamin D, I mean, they might have known, I don't. But sunshine and fresh air is what they said. If you go back and look at the historical record, that's what helped in the days of the Spanish flu. Now we have this thing running around. You better not go onto the beach. If you do, we're going to drag you home. If you get in the water, we may drown you right there, or we may take you home. It doesn't matter to us. How do you want to die? Okay, we have people lined up on the phones want to weigh in, but I got to take a brief, obscene profit timeout. We'll do that and come back before you know it.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
the soundtrack of your conservative life,
on the EIB Network.
the Golden EIB microphone, meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. And time now to head to the phones. This is Ross in Detroit. It's great to have you, Ross. Hi.
Good afternoon, Rush. Great to speak to you. 30-year listener, first-time caller.
Thank you, sir.
Purpose of my call. I think the state of Michigan is an example of what the DNC's national policy is. I think what is going on in the state of Michigan is vote by mail. I don't think it's the economic destruction. I think the long-term strategy is legalization of marijuana. People won't leave home because there's fear. They're going to send out ballots to voters. This is their plan to steal the election.
Yeah, a lot of people think that this is an effort that's underway to get mail-in balloting and so forth. You know, the thing about this, though, and I wish I don't have it in front of me because it's from last week or maybe even the week before, but it was a story from a specific state where some by-mail voting has already occurred, and the Republican Party dwarfed the Democrat Party in this particular election that featured a huge amount of mail-in ballots. Now, these were not just absentees. This was an attempt to do mail-in because of COVID-19, and that it stunned the Democrats in the state because, like pretty much everything else that they do that changes the way we vote, from showing up on election day to early voting to now voting by mail to vote by osmosis, to vote by poll. You know, that's the next thing that's going to happen. Polls are going to count as votes. That's one thing. The Democrats are going to be working on that sooner than you can whistle Dixie. And I wish I could remember. I remember the number 24 million, 24 was something to do with the number of ballots. But the takeaway was that the Republicans had far more participation in it than the Democrats did. I just think so much of the conventional wisdom, like the latest poll shows Biden leading Trump by 11. I'm sorry, folks, ain't no way. There is no way. And I was watching some television show yesterday as I began the preliminary process of show prep, getting ready for today. And some commentator was on, oh, yeah, the polls are, right now it's Biden's election to lose. I said, what planet are you people on? And I'll tell you, it's the group thinkers and the people of conventional wisdom from inside the Beltway and the entire Washington establishment who have concluded that Trump is just an abject idiot, has been, and that everybody's seeing it now. For example, the president saying that he's taking hydroxychloroquine. You've seen the reaction to that, have you not? What was your reaction when you saw that Trump said he was taking it? You know, because Trump is going to win that. Hydroxychloroquine has been used for years successfully by lots of people. Malaria and lupus. And there are people that want to take it who are being denied it because, let's face it, whether you want to call it a conspiracy theory or not, there are people who believe that hydroxychloroquine works and is not being utilized because there's no money to be made from it, because it's already been patented. It's already out there at $20 a dose. There's nobody going to get rich prescribing it. Nobody's going to get rich manufacturing it. And so there's a ongoing effort to disqualify it or impugn it. So here comes Trump saying that he's taking it. And a cacophonous reaction of hysteria. And so the conventional wisdom crowd, the conformists, all that's another, Trump just keeps hammering nails into his own coffin. They do not see, and it's amazing to me, we're now in the fourth year of the Trump presidency, and year 5 or even 6, if you want to count when the campaign began, and Trump's opponents still have made no effort to understand how it is that he connects with people. And why that connection continues to hold. And this hydroxychloroquine episode is a classic example of how the establishment types and the elites are 180 degrees out of phase in how people react to Trump saying that he's taking it. They think further evidence he's losing his mind. Everybody knows it. So they see a poll showing Biden up by 11, they automatically believe it. Based on what is Biden up by anything?
Rush Limbaugh, pointing the way on the EIB network.
Excuse me, but instead about promoting mail-in voting and, expanded absentee voting and so forth, because of the opportunity it presents, cheat. So I had remembered that I saw something where it backfired on the Democrats, this mail-in voting business. I couldn't remember exactly where, but I found it during the break. It's an American Spectator piece, and it's written by, David Catrone. Mail-in ballots, no magic bullet for Democrats. But the reason for that is multifaceted. And the one thing, folks, everybody has to remember, the one thing that'll defeat Democrat efforts to cheat is massive turnout by Republicans. Massive turnout will thwart every effort they make to cheat. That has been historically documented. It's the one thing that so far is a magic bullet. It just overwhelms the cheating. And it's how Trump won. Massive, massive turnout. Now, Republicans right now, the drive-by media doesn't want you to know this. The polling firms don't want you to know this. Republicans are currently more motivated than Democrat voters right now. But you can't count on that holding up. It's way early. Republicans are not monolithic, and they got really mad at their own side at the drop of a hat. Like when Barr comes out and says there's no way we're going to be prosecuting Obama, I can guarantee you that some Republicans say, well, the hell with it then. What's all this been about? And they stay home. If we're going to continue to let the perps go, what they wouldn't let us walk, things like that can suppress enthusiasm. Now, it can rebound, but it's, our side has demonstrated that we will get mad at our own side very rapidly. So the two instances, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because we did when this happened. The Nancy Pelosi HERO Act would require every state to allow no excuse absentee voting. It would provide postage-paid mail-in ballots. It would mandate that votes are counted up to 10 days after an election. And it would eliminate voter ID laws. Now, that bill has no prayer of passing. But even if it did, if it has no prayer of passing in the Senate, even if it did, it would not achieve its goal. And the reason was California's special 25th congressional district election to fill the open seat vacated by the Democrat out there, Katie Hill, who resigned last year because of a scandal involving her staff and, what was it, orgies? Three-way orgies and stuff. The election featured all mail-in voting. This special election, California 25, all mail-in voting in a district that Hillary Clinton won by 7 points in 2016. Yet, Mike Garcia, the Republican, won 12-point lead so solid by Wednesday night that his Democrat opponent, Christy Smith, decided to concede. So, in other words, the Republican candidate won in an election conducted precisely the way Pelosi wants to run every congressional election in the country, by mail. There were no systemic or physical impediments to participation. There was no requirement that voters possess photo ID. There were no access issues. And Mike Garcia pointed out on Fox and Friends the next day on Thursday morning, every registered voter had a self-addressed stamped envelope sent to them with a ballot, so accessibility was very high. But one of the things that happened was a lot of Democrats simply didn't send the ballot back in. And this was reported, it was lamented by the New York Times. Republicans are sending their ballots back at a significantly higher rate than Democrats. 40% of registered Republicans had mail. This is in California, folks, where the Republican Party didn't stand a prayer of anything, in that the enthusiasm there was dwarfing the Democrat. My only point here is that, you know, a lot of people think they know what this blue state continued lockdown is to promote this kind of cheating and balloting and mail-in. So it's about the economy. Do not doubt me on this. There may be other things they're trying to impact, like mail-in voting, because they think they can cheat there, but Republican turnout will defeat their cheating every time. And that's not me wishful thinking. It's history. These lockdowns are designed to damage the economy in these massive blue states so that Trump can be blamed for it. Trump is going to... Can I get real cynical for you? Try this. The more people who die, the more energy the Democrats have to blame Trump for it. Why do you think these models are showing increased projection of death, along with the increased projection of cases? Because to these people, more death equals more blame on Donald Trump. This is the campaign strategy in toto of the Democrat Party. They can't find any other way to beat Trump. They haven't been able to impeach him. They haven't been able to find anything criminal during investigations. They haven't been able to do diddly squat. So what they're doing now is trying to take advantage of something that's fallen into their lap. The coronavirus gives them an extraordinary opportunity to do and inflict and maintain the infliction of great damage on the economy. It's an age-old political truth that back pocket issues determine winners and losers of elections. And they are hell-bent here on this economy being seen as continually thwarted, lockdowns slowed down, more people out of work, employment rate rising, people on welfare rising. Even if deaths go up, it's good for them. They get to blame Trump for it. If you doubt me, grab audio soundbite number 6. Everybody knows that Andrew Cuomo shunted off seasoned citizens to nursing homes where they died. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it was a classic mistake. And here is his explanation yesterday in Albany for it.
Anyone who wants to ask why did the state do that with COVID patients in nursing home, it's because the state followed President Trump's CDC guidance. So they should ask President Trump.
You see, it's Trump's fault that so many patients died in nursing homes in New York that Andrew Cuomo sent them to. It's Trump's fault. He was following Trump CDC guidelines. So now what do we? Now we have a Democrat governor dumping all over the CDC, the protected home of medical expertise. The CDC gets dumped on. So when I tell you that the more people who die, the more they blame Trump, you can get mad at me, but and all you want, but it happens to be the strategy. It happens to be the plan, because the number of deaths, just like the economy and its numbers, the more deaths go up and the more the economy goes down, the Democrats perceive it to be better for them. On the one hand, they get to grow government, seize more power, demand bailouts, cripple the abilities of individuals to stand up against them. And DeSantis, no matter how good he does, it's the exact opposite. But if you're in Florida, imagine how bad you would be if Andrew Gillum had been elected governor. So, long way of saying, don't think that these lockdowns are about anything but the economy and having you blame Donald Trump for it. These people want to go, they want to prolong this in these blue states because they're powerful. New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, massively urban, massively populated. And the economic activity in those areas can have quite a balancing factor against the rest of the country. Things could be cooking in Florida, could be cooking in Missouri, could be cooking in South Dakota. And the bad news out of New York and Illinois could dwarf the good news elsewhere. This is what they want. They want the bad news. They want bad economic news because nothing else has worked in getting rid of Trump. Now, Trump just had a little press conference on his way to Air Force One. He was on the lawn of the White House on the way to Marine One to head out to Andrews Air Force Base, or Joint Base Andrews now, because he's winging his way to Michigan. It was another one of these press conferences where you can't see the press, so they get no FaceTime. You can only see him, and he's conducting them like an orchestra, pointing to them. And the main question they were asking him, everybody's outside. Why aren't you wearing a mask, Mr. President? Why are you wearing a mask? He said, I want the country back to normal. We don't wear masks when things are normal. See, wearing a mask is a shortstop to destroying normal. Everybody's running around wearing a mask. I mean, for crying out loud, that's massive fear. These people, these media people, are all wearing masks outside, and they know it. They know what the mask is. They are purposely trying to conjure and stir up more and more fear to go along with the bad economic news. And Trump is defying them by not wearing a mask. And then he went out and pointed, I can't even understand the questions you people are asking me because you're hiding behind these masks. I can't even understand what you're saying. Said he does not want mail-in ballots, too much fraud possible. Says he wants the churches opened. Talked about what a great relationship we have with Russia, a better relationship that we have now. And that the G7 Economic Summit may, in fact, be on for a live meeting at Camp David and the White House, not a Zoom, not a teleconference meeting. He then said, get this, that he's been taking hydroxychloroquine for 2 weeks, and he's still testing negative. I was blown away by the reaction that got last week. I mean, Neil Cavuto even made above the fold in Drudge for the first time in his career. Cavuto, he's at the height of irresponsibility, that this could get people killed, that this drug kills people, that you've got, Trump said, what do you got to lose? And Cavuto says, nothing but your life. This drug hasn't been approved. This drug killing people. It's giving people heart attacks. This is irresponsible. He went on a rant about how the president should not be taking the drug. And if he is, he shouldn't be telling anybody he's taking the drug. So Trump doubles down. See, I've been taking it 2 weeks. So the media is out now looking for stories of people who have taken the drug and have died. They found one woman been taking it for 19 years. She finally died. She's not been taking it for coronavirus. She's been taking it for malaria and lupus. She's 89 years old. She finally died. These are the kinds of tricks the media is out there continuing to play. Anyway, he says he's taken it for 2 weeks, still testing negative. And he may be going to the rocket launch next week. He wants to pull out all the press in the rocket, he wanted to put the press in the rocket and launch them wherever the rockets go. He said it was a joke because no one was laughing, and they don't know when he's joking because they have no sense of humor, so he has to make sure to tell them. Brief timeout. We'll come back and resume with you on the phones right after this, so do not go away
Thinking
anywhere.
about joining Rush 24/7?
If you become a member That's when you can watch the program on the Ditto Cam. That's when you can stream the program live and access the podcast of each program.
Stunning video, commercial-free podcasts. Get Rush 24/7 now at rushlimbaugh.com.
You really should think about getting it.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Bloomberg story here about how young millennials are fleeing America's big cities. And they're going back home. They're either going back home to mom and dad or they're going to suburbia and relocating because with the cities on lockdown, there's nothing to do. With the cities on lockdown, there's no social life. There's no dating scene. The bars and restaurants are closed. The ability to do fun things on the weekend, gone. So without the city and these attractions, the millennials say just makes a lot of sense to abandon ship and go back to their parents. Yes, their parents. Got to be a happy day for their parents, right? Here come the millennials back from the city. One millennial said, "We're throwing around the option of moving our stuff into a storage facility. No reason to waste money on rent. If we can live, work at home at a cheaper place." You know, this is happening in San Francisco. It is happening in Connecticut. There are a lot of people realizing without having to go to work in a city, there's no reason to live nearby and pay exorbitant rents. No reason to live in San Francisco at $3,000 a month when you don't even make that much a month. Working at Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is you work. Let me grab we got some Trump sound bites from the press conference. He just held the impromptu thing, but I want to get back to the phones. We'll go to Kokomo, Indiana, and Ron. Thank you. You're next. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you. Mega dittos and mega prayers.
Thank you, sir.
With all the individual liberties being trampled on by these blue state governors, being arrested for trying to go to work or go to church.
Yep.
You think there'll be a red wave similar to the Tea Party or even greater that happened in 2010 with the Tea Party?
Remains to be seen. I don't know Tea Party per se, things that may not, you're talking about numbers and ideological frame of mind. I think in these blue states you're already seeing revolts, and they've been going for a while. And the people revolting are not just Republicans. There, a lot of people in these blue states are Democrats. And these governors obviously are taking marching orders because they're doing great damage and harm to their own states and their own reputations in service of some larger goal. It's so hard to predict things like this, whether there's going to be some kind of an uprising. All I'll tell you is my instinct right now that, I'm not a conformist, and I'm not ever part of conventional wisdom. And I think if the election were tomorrow, I think this would be one of the biggest landslide defeats the Democrat Party has ever experienced. The Democrat Party owns the misery here. They're promoting it. They're trying to lay it off on Donald Trump, and their media minions are trying to lay it off on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the only guy in American politics. Well, I guess the only guy, but he's the only leader that's showing any optimism at all. The Democrats are just nothing but doom and gloom pessimists. And for what reason? They think that's how they have to relate to their voters. And pessimism, we've talked about it. Something every American is an expert at. It doesn't take any effort to be a pessimist. It doesn't take any education to be a pessimist. Nobody needs to teach you how. But being optimistic and positive is an applied effort. Now, some people naturally are. They are rare. Donald Trump is one of those people who is. And as he talks about the future and the economy rebounding, and the country resuming its great posture and so forth, I think that's infectious. I think it works. And as these states open up and cases go down, the actual evidence on the ground is the Democrats continue to be wrong about everything. Marine One, as he's on the way to Michigan, here he is talking about mail-in ballots. A reporter said, "You said review of federal funding for Michigan was unrelated to the flooding there. Is it related to mail-in voters?"
We don't want them to do mail-in ballots because it's going to lead to total election fraud. So we don't want them to do mail-in ballots. We don't want anyone to do mail-in ballots. Now, if somebody has to mail it in because they're sick, or, by the way, because they live in the White House and they have to vote in Florida and they won't be in Florida, if there's a reason for it, that's okay, if there's a reason. But if there's not, we don't want to take any chances with fraud in our elections.
Right. So, look, the president's concerned about it, and I didn't mean to imply that I'm not. I don't want to get too cute by half on why these blue state governors are keeping their states locked down. Mail-in ballots. Look, these blue states, they figure they're going to win anyway. They figure that they're going to elect, they're going to nominate, they're going to vote for whoever the Democrat nominee is, in this case Biden. Now, in some of these states, there are key precincts that Trump won. But the economy is the key here for why these prolonged shutdowns. And the economy is the key under the guise of public health. And plus, since Trump is so eager to reopen, they can't be for anything Trump is for, folks. They have to be opposed to everything Trump is in favor of. That's just a law. That's just an existing rule in the Democrat Party. Trump's for it, we're against it. Trump's against it, we're for it. And if Trump wants to reopen, they can't be for it. Even where it's documented to be working, they still can't be for it. But Rush, I thought this would always be the time we would unify. Don't give me that. The Democrats are not interested in unifying ever, even with you. The Democrats want to behave as authoritarians and power mongers over you. They don't want unity with you. It's not the objective. Here's Trump answering the question about hydroxychloroquine. The question, how long do you expect to take that drug, Mr. President?
I think it's another day. I had a 2-week regimen of hydroxychloroquine, and I've taken it, I think, just about 2 weeks. I think it's another day, and I'm still here. I'm still here, and I tested very positively in another sense. So this morning, yeah, I tested positively toward negative.
And so all these original outcries from people, he's going to kill himself, he's going to get other people to die, that gives you a heart attack, oh my God, it's horrible, it's irresponsible. And now he's admitting he's just about to wrap up 2 weeks on it. And that the drug is being administered by White House doctors. The controversy over this drug remains, and it's its own conspiracy theory now. There are people who believe that this drug works. They think they've got evidence documenting it works, but there's no new money in it. It's $20 a dose. $20 a curative dose. $20 for it to help you. There's no new patent money to be made in it. It's patented 50 years ago. It's a malaria drug. Anyway, here's Tom in Springfield, Illinois. You're next, sir. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Rush. Dittos. Honored to speak with you.
Thank you, sir.
I just wondered, why aren't we seeing models of what will happen if we keep the economy suppressed too long or closed for too long? Will the economy collapse? And if it would, what would it look like? I don't think anybody thinks in the Democratic side that there's any drawback to just staying closed for another 2 months, 3 months.
Obviously, they don't.
Take.
Well, no, I may have misspoken. There are some elements of the Democrat Party who wouldn't mind the total destruction of the economy because it would allow them the opportunity to remake it.
But why wouldn't they want to educate the voters, such as I know CNN's not going to do.
Well, because nobody is in favor of what the Democrats want. Nobody wants the economy to crash. Nobody wants to go back to Great Depression permanently. And nobody wants the Democrat Party rewriting the economy in their massive dreams and turning America into this massive socialist communist paradise. I mean, some people do, but not a majority. The Democrats still have to govern against the will of people. When they win, they still have to force things on us. They are elected. Do you think Obama would have been elected if he had been honest about Obamacare, what it was going to do?
No.
No. They have to cover up everything they're going to do and mask it. They camouflage who they are. And when they're really feeling confident after winning election is when they take the masks off and start behaving as they really are with their arrogance, which is what happened during the 2 years, the 2 terms of Obama. Look what happened. Hillary Clinton loses. The American people, we still are not to the point where a majority of us want what the Democrats want. So the only way for them to get where they want is by use of authoritarian force. So your question is actually a pretty good one. What would the country look like if these lockdowns continue as long as Democrat governors want them?
And what would the signs be? What would be the first elements?
Well, we're living them.
Well, yes, we are. So would we be in the same shape in another 2 months?
No, it'd be worse. It would, depending on where. See, this is another hideous part of this. These blue state governors are standing by, doing nothing, maintaining their lockdowns, while depending on the red states to bail them out, to create growing economies, to have their people go back to work, producing tax revenue and whatever else that can contribute. It's still like playing tiddlywinks right now, but still contribute some to the bailouts and the ongoing sustenance necessary in the blue states.
I see.
If the red states were doing the same thing the blue states are, your question to be academic, we'd already be there.
But there's no models of what it would look like if we go way too long.
Well, what do you think would happen?
Well, I think, for one, we move closer to socialism every day we proceed.
Yeah, but what does that look like? You're asking me, what do you...
That's what I'm asking. I don't really know exactly. I don't know what it would look like.
It looks like the country would become a ghost country. Look at pictures of New York. It is a ghost town. Look at pictures of Boston. It is a ghost town. Just expand it. By ghost town, I mean nothing is open.
Uh-huh. I see. Well, I just wondered. I thought, there's 1-hour specials all over the place on all the networks and articles in the newspaper of all the models, but nobody talks about the long-term economic collapse that could happen and what it would look like.
No, because you're supposed to endure that if it means saving just one life. Look, you actually have swerved into something here. I started asking the very question you're asking within 2 weeks of this lockdown. It seemed out of place to me from the very beginning. It didn't seem necessary. There was a part of me intellectually that understood it. But after 2 weeks, and I wasn't hearing anybody talking about reopening, even at these White House coronavirus task force press briefings every day, there wasn't a damn thing mentioned about reopening. There wasn't a damn thing mentioned about the damage already happening to the U.S. economy. There wasn't a damn thing mentioned about the unemployment that was already happening. What the focus was how we're ramping up to build ventilators, we're ramping up to build masks, that we're doing a great job in sending hospital beds to New York. It was all about how we are coping with the virus and saving lives, and how we're competing with other nations around the world, and how we're beating them. Are you like me? After a while, at these coronavirus task force briefings, I got sick and tired. Just be honest. I got sick and tired of hearing Trump bragging about the ventilators. About how we got more ventilators than any country in the world. We got more this, we got more tests, we got this than any country in the world. Until I figured out what was going on. And Rich Lowry has a great piece about this, too, in addition to his piece on DeSantis. What Trump did, what Trump and his administration did in ramping up the PPE, the personal protective equipment, and all of this, the masks and the ventilators and the tests, it is a phenomenal achievement because we didn't have any of that supply chain ready to go. The Obama administration, there was nothing, just like there was in the military. And the reason Trump kept bragging about it is because the media was ignoring it. And it was a massively huge achievement that he was proud of. And because the press wasn't covering it, he was talking about it every day. About the number of ventilators that we manufactured, about the conversions at various American factories to build ventilators. Because during the early period of time, the news was that everybody who gets this can't breathe. Everybody's going to need a ventilator. That turned out not to be true either. But it was just an incredible presidential administration achievement to get all of that stuff built at scale and ramped up as fast as they did. The media was ignoring it, so Trump had to constantly tout it. And in the process of touting it, there was never any mention of opening up. If you were listening regularly here at this time, going back to the middle of March when all this began, you remember that I came back from a prolonged absence because of cancer treatment. And I was fit to be tied, that nobody was talking about reopening. And I was talking about how I'd travel around and I saw boarded up storefronts and empty storefronts, and all I saw behind them was people and faces and dreams. People had invested everything they had in opening some of these businesses, and not a single person was yet talking about the damage being done to them. We were making a hero out of Andrew Cuomo as the death toll mounted in New York City and New York State. We're trying to make heroes out of other Democrat governors. In the meantime, people were losing their livelihoods. And I could not believe nobody was talking about it. So actually out there, Tom, I was way ahead of you on this. I mean, I wasn't in visualizing what it was going to be if we didn't open up in 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But as I continued to hear, no sports, no fans in the stands, no schools open, I said, what the hell is this? We've never done this before, and it isn't necessary. And I was cringing at it. I was waiting for somebody, some governor. Open your state, please. Let's prove none of this is necessary. And so some of the states have opened. Kemp opened up, and then DeSantis never did really close down. I mean, there was a small stage of it. And these places have opened up, are thriving. They're doing well. It's all looking good. Are the blue states influenced by it? No way. Are governors of blue cities in these states impressed? No way. Because it's politics first, baby. It's kill Donald Trump first, baby. That's requirement number one. And it was breaking my heart seeing what was being ignored. And it was music to my ears when Trump and Pence finally started talking about reopening and how we're going to do it and why we have to do it. Because this lockdown should not have lasted more than 2 weeks. Once we learned that there was not going to be an overrun of the hospitals, which is the only reason we flattened the curve, was to make sure the hospitals were not overrun. We should have been reopening at that time after 2 to 3 weeks, folks. I got to take a break. We'll be back. Don't go away.
He didn't start it, but he'll be happy to finish it. Rush on the EIB network.
Here's Lisa in Newport Beach, California. Hello.
Hi, Russ.
Hi.
Hi. Mega dittos and mega prayers for you.
Thank you.
Really praying for you.
Thank you very much.
so honored to talk to you. This is about my 6th time I've actually gotten on with you, so it's such a privilege. I'm here in California, and our governor has declared that polling places are going to be too unsafe, so we can't go to a regular polling place, and you've been talking about mail-in ballots and such. And I think I have a perfect solution. Millions of people since this pandemic has started has been safely shopping at Costco, Walmart, marijuana dispensaries, grocery stores. And I think that, we can open those up for one day on November 3rd. Everybody can go to a Costco, Walmart, grocery store, gas station, marijuana dispensary, and think of how many lives can be saved if Planned Parenthoods across the country open up for a polling place one day.
Yeah. Now I know you're not serious. You're making a point.
We safely can go every single day. We go safely to markets and.
Yeah, right. You go to Costco, you go to a grocery store or whatever. Everybody's in a mask. They have to shut it down. It's been a perfectly safe place to go. And if it had been shut down, nobody'd be eating, and there'd be real trouble. And the same thing with whatever Costco's and so forth, the gas stations. You very cleverly throw in the pot dispensaries there. And Planned Parenthood, but you know as well as I do, we can't turn those places into ballot centers.
No,
into polling places.
But you know as well as I do that we can have polling places safely operating for one.
Exactly, because all these other places you just described are open and operating safely with no mass death and no mass numbers of cases.
That's right.
It's just they want it. They want it. And this is California, where they don't need to cheat. They don't even need to cheat in California, and yet they're oriented towards it. But I think they're bugged because the mail-in ballot in California 25, the Republicans won the district. Because why? Because Republican turnout will always defeat, do not doubt me, Republican turnout, if it's massive, will defeat Democrat efforts at fraud and cheating.
Rush Limbaugh, simply fascinating, on the EIB network.
It's interesting. The drive-by media is ignoring this. It is a piece in the New York Post by David Marcus, and it ran yesterday. It actually was published last night. And the headline, "Sometimes a good rant is all a writer can offer." Bear with me. And the New York Post has covered it. One man's plea: the Big Apple is dying. Streets are empty. Tens of thousands have been plunged into poverty. Our leaders have no plans and no answers. And boy, is that ever true. Cuomo and de Blasio don't have a clue, folks. New Yorkers have already learned to socially distance. Businesses can adjust. The elderly and infirm can continue to be isolated. It needs to end now. Do you know the recovery rate for people who get coronavirus under the age of 60? You know what it is? 99%. 99% of people under 60 who get coronavirus recover from it. Why are you surprised? Because you're not told. The exact opposite impression is given, that everybody who gets it dies, that everybody who gets it suffers unbearably. The fact remains, and it always has been the case, that 98% overall of people who get the coronavirus recover from it. Some take a day or two, some take a week, some take a month. It's not uniform. But it is not 10 times or 13 times as deadly as the flu, as they have been attempting to get people to believe. Now, if you get into the higher age ranges where patients have pre-existing conditions, then it is deadly, like the flu is deadly for people in those groups. But let me read you some pull quotes from this New York Post piece by David Marcus again. Last Friday morning, some 3,500 New Yorkers lined up at a Catholic church in Queens to receive free food hours before the church even opened. Catholic Charities has reported a 200% increase in demand over the past month and a half. By prolonging the coronavirus shutdown long after its core mission was accomplished, Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio have plunged tens of thousands of New Yorkers into poverty, and it needs to end now. And it's not just New York, but it's where this guy happens to live and is writing about, so we'll stick with him. It's not just New York where this is happening. In mid-March, we were told we had to endure a lockdown to make sure the hospitals didn't get overrun, so we did that. The hospitals were not overwhelmed. We turned the Javits Center into a hospital. We didn't need it. We brought in a giant Navy ship to treat New Yorkers. We didn't need that. We were told we were moments away from running out of ventilators. We weren't, and now the United States has built so many, we're giving them away to other countries. Meanwhile, the Big Apple is dying. Its streets are empty. The bars and jazz clubs, the restaurants, the coffee houses sit barren. Beloved haunts, storied rooms, perfect slice joints are shuttered, and many for good. The sweat equity of countless small business owners is evaporating. Instead of getting people back to work, providing for their families, our mayor talks about a Fantasyland New Deal for the post-coronavirus era. Exactly. Let's tear it all down, these people. We just tear it all down and rebuild our socialist utopia. Let it all go away. Let it all fade away. Open the city, writes Mr. Marcus. Open all of it right now. Broadway shows, beaches, Yankees games, the schools, the top of the freaking Empire State Building, everything. New Yorkers have already learned to socially distance. Businesses can adjust. The elderly and infirm can continue to be isolated. For 2 months, we have waited for Cuomo and de Blasio to tell us how this ends. Where is ex-Mayor Bloomberg with his alleged army of tracers the governor told us was the key to reopening? And why did he hand that responsibility over to Bloomberg, who nobody elected anyway, and nobody can find now? What the hell is going on? Is anybody in charge of this situation? Or are we just left with the governor and his talking head brother arguing on CNN about which of the two loves their mother the most? And by the way, who cares? In late April, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp defied experts by opening his state. The Atlantic magazine, once a serious publication that should now come with a stick of stale bubblegum, accused him of engaging in human sacrifice. You want to guess what happened? Guess. Come on, take a guess. Instead of the predicted spike in deaths, the number of cases of coronavirus and associated deaths declined. We did what we were asked. We flattened the freaking curve. There is no longer any reasonable justification for the government to deprive us of our livelihoods. And our rights aren't the government's to grant or take away anyway. They belong to us. The free grant of nature and the God of nature. We are Americans. More than that, New Yorkers, gee damn it. David Marcus is a correspondent in New York for the Federalist website. And he's tapped my sentiments exactly. The only thing, I just want to remind you, I've been on this rant since 2 weeks after the shutdown. Maybe 3, I don't know, but it made no sense to me. It literally never made any sense to me. When I first saw the recovery rate for this virus is 98%. And the only way it made sense to me was as a weapon to be used against Donald Trump. And the first time I mentioned that, oh, you should have heard the cat call. Rush, you know, not everything's about Trump and not everything is about Republican versus Democrat. The hell it isn't. If it's on American media, it's about Donald Trump. And if it's on American media, it's about harming Donald Trump. If it's on American media, it's about defeating Donald Trump. If it's on American media, it's about impeaching, about getting rid of Donald Trump. And any deviation from that is ignored. It's always been about getting Donald Trump. In fact, I'll go one step further. I was worried that Trump went along with it. So I started conjuring up my theories as to explain it. I think I got pretty close. You know why we're here today? A bogus poll from the UK that 2.2 million people in America would die. They went in, they tell Trump 2.2 million people will die. You got to shut it down. Who tells him this? Fauci and the rest of the National Institutes for Health people and the CDC people. People that were all there before Trump got there. They were all there when Obama was there and even many prior to that. They are part of the Washington establishment. Nobody will convince me that a vast majority of them don't also want to get rid of Trump, just like that ambassadorial corps that, or crew that was brought in to testify in open hearing about Ukraine. I know that all of the Washington establishment would love to be rid of Donald Trump even before they would like to save this economy. And Trump wanted the respect of those people in this kind of crisis. Deadly crisis, lives on the line. Trump wanted to be seen as cooperative, taking it seriously. He didn't want to appear knee-jerk and think they were lying to him. He didn't want to go down that road. I could, because I'm not Trump and I'm not part of government and I don't have to get along with him. But I've been suspicious of it all since day one. And the reason is simple. I have not been suspicious of the medical news. I've not been suspicious. I've been suspicious of the models, as you well know. My first rant was about the models and how they're always wrong, be it climate change or this or whatever. The reason that I was doubtful and the reason that I had my antenna up is that from the beginning, there was no talk of how long this shutdown was going to last and when we were going to reopen. All we heard was flatten the curve, mitigate, mitigate, mitigate. Socially, then we kept hearing about we can't go to sports, we can't play sports, we can't go to church, we can't open schools. So what is the hell is this? We've never done this before. And something that 98% of the people who get it recover from. And all of this is coming after a failed impeachment effort. Speaking of that, there's been a leak of a phone call between a former Ukraine president and Biden over the firing of the leaked phone call simply confirms that Biden was telling the truth when he was over at the Council on Foreign Relations bragging about getting a prosecutor fired who was going after his kid. The leaked phone call between Biden and, what's his name, Poroshenko, the former president of Ukraine, confirms what Biden has admitted to, that he was the one meddling in internal Ukraine affairs. He was the one demanding a prosecutor looking into his son's illegal activity at Burisma get fired, or else there wouldn't be $1 billion in aid from the United States to Ukraine. The phone call that's leaked confirms that that thing Biden was bragging about actually happened. And yet none of what Trump has been accused of doing in any of this has any verification or truth. We've learned that the FBI wanted to continue to pay Christopher Steele to dig up dirt on Michael Flynn after totally bombing out on the Steele dossier on Trump. We've learned even more about the Susan Rice memo that she wrote on Inauguration Day, post-dating it to January 5th, the day of the Oval Office meeting with Obama and Biden and Sally Yates and Clapper and Brennan and Comey, a meeting designed to entrap Trump the next day using the Steele dossier. We've now learned the White House counsel, Obama's White House counsel, Eggleston, told her to write that memo. Why? Because obviously Obama knew. Obama knew what was going on. The purpose of the memo was for her to say that Obama was demanding everything be done by the book. Well, I think the book was rules for radicals. I think that's what the by the book references to, actually. Saul Alinsky, ruled for, because nothing else was by any legal book. Whatever Obama and that January 5th meeting was about, it was not by the book, by any legal matter, legal term that you can think of. Rice penned Inauguration Day email at White House counsel's direction. If that's true, we need to see the email or the letter where this advice from the White House counsel was given. Why was this advice given? Did somebody direct Mr. Eggleston to tell Susan Rice to write her backdated memo? If so, who? When was this advice sent to Ms. Rice? Was Mr. Eggleston present in the meeting? When did he learn of it? But why? Who told him to tell Susan Rice to write a CYA memo on Inauguration Day, January 20th, and post-date it to make it look like it was memorializing a meeting that had happened on January 5th? Well, it's obvious they felt the need to cover something up because of who knew what. Ladies and gentlemen, the coronavirus pandemic has sparked a massive increase in the number of cyber crime complaints flowing into the FBI. We're talking about the good part of the FBI. This is not the Comey-era FBI. See, inside the FBI is a department, the Internet Crime Complaint Center. And they typically get about 1,000 complaints a day there. All this coronavirus-related schemes, all these schemes that are out there now, concocted by cyber criminals, have made that number jump to 3,000 plus. The FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center up to 3,000 plus complaints a day. Phony scams, promising assistance with government checks, fraudulent COVID-19 charity websites asking for donations. I mean, the complaints run the gamut. One thing is common, though. Cyber criminals are working to get your online information. Credit card numbers, your login data, your name, social security if they can. And you combat this by having LifeLock online identity theft protection. LifeLock's monitoring systems scan more than 1 billion online transactions every day. And if you're a LifeLock member, they're looking for your information in the wrong hands being used by illegal people, illegal ways. And if they find that, they alert you to it, and that's how you shut it down before real damage is done. That's the benefit of LifeLock. Early warning and a restoration team that doesn't stop until you're fixed. Now, no one company can prevent all identity theft, but LifeLock is going to give you the best protection possible. Sign up at LifeLock.com. Use my name. Save 25% off your first year. That's LifeLock.com. Remember to use the name Rush.
Rush is always at work, and the EIB never closes.
15 hours a week here. What is there not said? It turns out a lot, and the Limbaugh letter is the repository for it.
When 3 hours is just not enough, get the Limbaugh letter. Subscribe now at RushLimbaugh.com. That's RushLimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Right. Robert in, looks like Banning, California. Hello, sir. Great to have you here.
Hello, Rush. Thanks for taking the call. I'm calling to find out why nobody's talking about the growing number of disaffected Democrats, not the Tulsi and Bernie people who got burnt and who are not going to go with their establishment. Why nobody talking about Democrats who were being hurt by their own governor in California, right here in California? I'm registered as Democrat, independent, but I have Democrat friends who have careers. They have kids to feed, cars to pay for, homes, mortgages. They like to go out and watch a baseball game too, just like everybody else. All Democrats are not dependent, and they certainly are not stupid.
Wait, how do you know this? Are you a Democrat?
I'm registered as a Democrat. I'm an independent. I wouldn't belong to either,
Because I don't see a whole hell lot of what you're talking about happening out there. I see a bunch of compliant toads going right along with it.
They're compliant, and they're delighted to see delighted to see Trump get hurt. That's fine. Trump get hurt, the Republicans suffer, but they have careers and jobs and houses to pay for, and and this is hurting them. This is not making. I think that has a lot also to do with that recent mail-in election here.
Well, I agree. It ought to be hurt.
Democrats just throw their ballot in the trash rather than go and support this.
Well, but I'm telling you, there isn't any protest of the kind that you're talking about. These people seem to be swallowing it, accepting it without too much trouble.
Hollywood.
They're not worried about their mortgages. They're worried. I mean, they're being paid more not to work than they are to work.
People who aren't doing well in the first place. But particularly in places like California, there are a lot of Democrats who have careers.
Let me tell you something. If Democrats were going to bitch and whine and moan about their party, they'd have been doing it years and years before now. Democrats have been hurt by Democrats. Everybody's been hurt and harmed by Democrat policies for years and years. And they're not bitching and moaning about it then, and they're not bitching and moaning about it in very large numbers now. That's why you're not seeing it. Jupiter, Florida. David, you're next. I'm looking for a story I have that documents your point you're going to make here, but go ahead, sir.
Yes, hello, Rush. I received a phone call from friends this morning in Wuhan, China, stating that the city was locked down again for a supposed second wave of the Wuhan virus, and it's my thoughts that this Chinese government would certainly sacrifice or plant this idea or sacrifice Wuhan if it would keep the American economy shut down now that we're starting to reopen. And I'm sure that their Democratic partners would cooperate to the fullest in this effort.
Yeah, I saw the story, but it wasn't about Wuhan. I saw there is a story. I'm still looking for it here, and I've.
Well, my friends are in Wuhan, and they said they were shut down.
Here it is. Here it is. China seeing second wave of Wuhan coronavirus. More than 100 million forced into another lockdown. It's in a different city.
I understand that. I researched that also, but my friends are in Wuhan, and they said they were locked down today.
Today. All right.
That's
okay.
Exactly right.
Well,
for a second wave.
I think it's being done. I don't trust the Chi-Coms for as far as I could throw one. And I think that this is an encouragement, if you will, to the American media. Let them know about the lockdown. Give them another reason to demand the extension of the American lockdown. If there's a second wave happening in Wuhan, if there's a second wave happening of the Wuhan coronavirus in the Jilin province, it's a new province now. The story I have, 1,300 miles north of Wuhan, where this second wave has broken out. And what I find fascinating about this is everybody's been asking, how the hell did this virus not make its way to Shanghai? How the hell did this virus not make its way to Beijing? Well, guess what? It looks like a second wave has found its way 1,300 miles closer to Beijing in a province 1,300 miles northeast of the Hubei province, which is where Wuhan is. And so if the news can get out there, second, oh my God, we shouldn't be reopening. I think it's a dangling carrot to the American media. I agree with you totally. I wouldn't put it past the Chi-Coms to feed the American media a story that would allow them to advocate for keeping the current lockdown in place and penalizing the states that have opened, and then arguing for the continuation of this lockdown. Now, this, by the way, this new breakout, if you will, 34 new cases and 1 death in this new province, in Jilin province. 34 cases and 1 death, and they're shutting down a city of 100 million. Not a city, but a region, a province of 100 million people. The Chi-Coms are doing this. 34 new cases, 1 death. And China's calling this a second wave. Folks, I will guarantee you this is the Chi-Com government playing the American media. I agree with you, David. Thanks. Who's next? This is Dee in Des Moines, Iowa. You're next. You're up. Hello.
Hi, Rush. Say mega prayers, and you have gotten me through many, many years. The presidency of Obama, I didn't think it could get any worse, Clinton, but now I'm really worried about this coming election. I would like to know your take. Even if Trump wins, what if he loses the Senate? What can he possibly get done? And what is your take on these close Senate races? Here in Iowa, I know Schumer is spending a lot of money to defeat Joni Ernst. But I'll be quiet now and listen to your response.
Well, I'm going to disappoint you. And I don't want to disappoint you, but I fear what I'm going to say is going to disappoint you. I'm not even paying attention to it. I don't even know what the status of the Senate is. And I'm ignoring every drive-by news story about it because I don't believe it. If the news is negative about Republicans losing the Senate, I immediately ignore it and go, because it ain't happening. If there's a story about Biden beating Trump by 11, I go, because it's BS. It isn't happening. Trump is not losing the election, and we're not losing the Senate. We may win the House. All of this in the drive-by media is BS. Whatever Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are threatening or promising is BS. There's not a shred of truth in the drive-by. There's not a shred of truth in all these polls. The polls can't possibly be accurate. Ignore them. The things that are going to determine the outcome of the election in November haven't even happened yet. I'm including the virus. I'm including the shutdown. The things that are going to determine who wins in November have not even happened yet. It is senseless to poll anything right now, aside from the pollsters making money and giving the drive-by something to talk about. It is irrelevant. We haven't even had the conventions yet, and we may not have them. And of course Schumer wants to defeat Joni Ernst. He's going to want to defeat Joni Ernst every day, the day after she wins re-election. Just because Schumer wants it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Go back to May of 2016. Tell me what the polls showed. I'll guarantee you, I don't remember, but I can guarantee you what they said. Hillary in a landslide. What did the polls show 2 weeks before the election? Hillary in a landslide. What did the polls have to ignore to show? They had to ignore Hillary not being able to stand up, not being able to get in a bus. They had to show her not being able to hold her own in a debate. They had to show her being unable to draw a crowd, and they still had her winning in a landslide. There was nothing real about it. The media and the Democrats are on a high horse because they think that they have finally turned Trump's base against him. And they think that they have turned those battleground areas of these states that Trump narrowly won. They think they've turned those areas against him because of the coronavirus and the economic slowdown. They think they're going to be able to blame him for all this. when this is a Democrat blue state governor shutdown and ongoing lockdown. And they're the ones that sound happy about it. There's no optimism coming from any of the blue side of the aisle about the future of the country, about anything. It's nothing but pessimism and doom and gloom. And it may sound good now and it may make good headlines now, but it's not the kind of thing that wins elections. Democrats aren't offering any solutions other than massive, continued socialist giveaways. It's nice now when they're keeping you out of your business, keeping you from your job, but believe me, long term, it's not what the American people are about. The American people are not ready to throw the Constitution away. They're not ready to throw their guns away. They're not ready to throw their churches away. They are not ready to throw away the Constitution. They're not ready to throw away their liberty or their freedom. They're not ready to elect Democrats in massive positions of power. Now, some states are. I mean, when I say Americans, I'm talking about a majority. We still haven't lost the country, folks, is my point to you. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make you mad, but I don't think about things like what if Trump wins but loses the Senate. I don't think about those things in May. I don't think I'm not a political professional strategist analyst in that regard. I don't get caught up in polling data minutia and think tank position papers and all this because nobody knows. It's impossible to know. And the fact is, and the fact remains, that whatever it is that's going to determine who wins the election, presidential and all these local, state, and congressional races, the events that are going to determine those outcomes have not happened yet. I humbly believe that. But Rush, the virus and the shutdown, you don't think that has long last? Yeah, but something's gonna happen between now and Election Day that's going to make it better or worse. It isn't going to stay constant like this. It never does. There is always change. And when have the Democrats ever beaten Trump? They've beaten Republicans, but they have not beaten Trump. They beat Republicans in the midterms, but that was not beating Trump. And that whole 2018 midterm, why did that happen? 55 Republicans quit. Well, what the hell do you think is going to happen? 55 House Republicans just gave up. They just quit because they lost their chairmanships. They were term limited out of their chairmanships. I don't know what president could overcome a 55-seat retirement. They haven't beaten Trump yet, folks. That's why they're going insane trying to.
The truth lives here. Rush on the EIB Network.
Hello, xin chào mọi người. Hôm nay thì mình sẽ review về cây bơ. Đây, bơ đây. Thấy không? Hello. Mình đặt cái bơ. Đấy, bơ chưa? Lá này thì khá là xanh, rất là đẹp, cũng được, ăn cũng được, mùi thơm nha, mùi bơ, nó có mùi bơ, vị của bơ. Xung quanh mình thì khá là nhiều cây, đây. Trong một vườn cây khá là nhiều cống này. Thật ra đang phải cống vườn cây đéo gì. Vậy cống này nè, đây cống cây này là cái gì ta? Đây nè, thấy không? Một miếng nước khá là to nha. Bên này có các hoa. Bên này trầu hết toàn là rác. Cái gì? Sao lắc đáy vậy? Thật sự luôn á chứ. Đây review. Đỡ thấy. Đây là cây thực cẩm. Đó luôn. Được không? Được không? Mắt được luôn. Nè. Lại chê cơ. Ôi shit. Đấy, thấy không? Được. Cái đinh lăng ổng này nè. Khá là nhiều. Nước chút xíu thôi. Vườn cây nữa. Ồ, được rồi. Rồi. Đây, rất là nhiều. Được nhỉ? Được. Đây, ốc này. Sen ăn sạch cây vậy rồi. Đây, chỉ như bạn thấy thì một cái cống thôi. Đây. Cống nhỏ nhỏ. Nước. Mưa không ngập đấy, trời mưa ngập cao lắm rồi. Mưa đã ngập rồi. Trời nước vào thì có này. Mình để thật sự luôn. Nhưng cái bão mà không mưa to lắm nhỉ. Thật sự mưa không to lắm. Cây đẹp đi. Bắt được rồi. Được. Sau đây thì mình xin kết thúc video mình tại đây. Bạn nào thích kênh thì nhấn subscribe và nhấn like. Vậy nhá. Bye mọi người.